Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Deez, this is my workshop, and we're going to get on to part 2 of the Toolmakers Vise that we started building. Now that I've had time to kind of sit and think about the project, it's ever evolving. Most of my projects are. We're changing things up a little bit, and I'm starting to wrap my head around what it is that I want to achieve in the end. I know when I first started this particular project, there's a lot of different designs, a lot of different plans out there that you can find. Some of them are more complex than others, but I was just looking for something simple that I could achieve on my own with the equipment and the materials that I had. And so this simple design is what I came up with. In the last video, we completed the final body with our slots and everything that we needed in order to continue to move on. I was going to use this threaded rod, but this is a machine shop. It's a hobby machine shop. I need to make my own lead screw. Now, I'm not going to make Acme threads or anything like that, but I do have this hex bar. It is 12L14. Now, caveat, let me just note right now, I'm not using all of the proper materials. I don't have the proper materials, and I really don't know exactly what I should be using. That's something that I need to learn. There's so many different types of metals, strengths. You got high-speed steel, you have drill rod, you have hardened steel, you have carbon steel that you can harden later. There's just tons and tons of different options out there. I'm using what I have in my possession. This is not going to be a heavy use, high torque vise. It's just going to be able to mount into my other vise and hold something steady. We're using some A36 mild steel, and we are using some 12L14 for the lead screw because that's what I got. This is hex, so we are going to make our threaded rod lead screw out of this. It'll be nice because I'll be able to put a wrench on that in addition to turning that down and make a nice thread for the lead screw. Now, the last thing we're going to change up, again, we were going to lay this flat and make it a little bit wider, but we ended up going with an inch wide vise, and we're going to use this cutoff. That will be what moves back and forth. So we need to have a 1/4 inch depth, a little farther. I'll measure that for sure. But what we're doing is we're going to make a T, basically a T, so that this can slide back and forth. And then to mount that, we'll drill a couple holes, and we'll use this brass flat stock that I have. Almost looks like bronze, but I think it's brass. Regardless, this is what we're going to use. It's 1/2 inch wide, and it'll fit right into that slot with just a little bit of manipulation. So we'll be able to make a nice mounting portion with this, and we can slide that back and forth as needed. So we are coming along. I think the first thing we're going to do is get started with the movable jaw. Well, now it's time to move on to the movable jaw. So we have our base piece, we have this squared up, and this is going to go in here. We'll do a threaded hole here, but then this piece will go in and out. Now, I'm not sure if I want to cut this in half. I know I'm losing more and more space, but the idea of this is to hold small components. This is not to hold large items. Let's go ahead and put the T-slot on the bottom of this so that it can ride in this channel. I did some math, and I need to go 360 thou in either direction in order to make a 1/4 inch T. Let's see if my math was correct. Let's get this going. Well, we've got the T milled out of there. I've been playing around with it, just filing a little bit of edges, but that fits really nice. Slides back and forth into the body, just like I wanted. So now what I want to do is fine tune and shape my slot. So I need to cut off 1/8 of an inch, or round off 1/8 of an inch on either end of that, so it sits flush with both the back and the front jaw. I think I'll use a grinder. Well, I'm going to move on to making the threaded rod, and then we'll come back to our movable jaw. For now, I just want to do something a little different, but I still got a few operations we need to do on this. Drill our hole, drill and tap holes on the bottom to mount our mounting brass piece, and then we have to drill, put a set screw in here so that we can mount this. But I do want to go ahead and finish making the lead screw. So this is the material we're going to use. The total length that I'm going to need, I'm going to make it longer than it needs to be. I'm guessing 3 1/4, but I might as well make it 4 inches, and then we can make our knob on the end, and then I can cut it down. So this will be the threaded portion, and then we want to have a relief, and then we'll have a head about 1/2 inch to put us about there. So let's cut this off at 4 1/2 inches, a little strong, and that will be our, this will be our workpiece. So the goal is to thread this with 3/8 16. That's the thread that I'm going to choose. And we're going to turn this down to 370 thou and see if we can get that threaded. Well, I think I'm going to stop here for this evening. I did wanted to switch gears. I wanted to stop on this particular piece and focus on something different for a bit before I continued on. I still need to drill the 2 holes here. We got to cut this brass piece and match those holes up. I ended up using a file. Not satisfied with this. It's not pretty, but it's functional. I do have an option. I could flip it over or mill more down. This is taller than it needs to be. So if you look at how that's going to be, you know, I've got plenty of material to work with again, but it's going to be functional. I think I'm just going to go with it. This does slide back and forth nicely, and that's the goal. And then this brass piece is going to fasten that in there to keep it from coming out. We're going to have to drill a hole and figure out how to mount this screw in here. We will have to turn this on the lathe again a little bit. I got an idea for that. But the screw 12L14 turned out very nice. That's going to be it right there. Here, we'll get you a close-up with some. Turned out really nice. That's going to be my lead screw. Pretty happy with that. $12.014. Here's this piece. Again, I used a file and it's just, I didn't do that like I wanted it to, but it will work. And then here's this piece. Still got a lot more to go. But there we go. I think this is going to work out. Hey everybody, today is the next day and we're going to continue on with this vise build. Right now I'm going to do an edge finder. I'm going to move on to the body of the vise and we're going to do our threaded hole. It's going to be 3/8/16. So we need to find our y-axis edge points and our x-axis edge points. And then I want to come down 1/4 inch from the front side, from the top, what will be the top of the vise, and that's where the front edge of that 3/8 hole is going to be, and then the 3/8 screw will down. So I need to divide 3/8, which is 375 thou, divided by 2, plus 1/4 inch. We'll do the math, and we'll use a DRO for that, but let's get started. I will show you here in a second, but it's very fortunate that I have R8 collets because of the way that this is put in the vise. I'm using a lot of the height, and the R8 collet allows me to put in my jobber length drill bit and still be able to use it to drill this hole. So this particular mill is still working out, and I haven't had any gotchas yet. I haven't worked on super tall things, but this is a 4-inch piece of material, so the height is so far working out very well for me. But let's go ahead and find our edges and get this hole drilled. So there is our center from our x-axis. The y-axis, I am back 250 thou, but I also need to accommodate for the jobber length, the 5/16 drill that I'm going to be putting in there. So I need to divide that by 2, and that would be 312 thou divided by 2, and bring it back down that much further. And that is going to be my starting point and where I'm going to drill the hole. I should note, for those of you that are still learning like I am, we did our edge finding. We used a edge finder that has a 200 thou center point. So you got to do math in order to find out where your edge. So we did the edge. We need to subtract or add 100 thou to that edge in order to be on center with the spindle. Then we need to come down our 250 thou, or 1/4 inch, and then we need to add half the thickness of a 5/16 drill bit, and that is a total of 506 thou down. And now we have our 1/4 inch starting point for where we're going to start here. So I just wanted to point that out, that we are all still learning together, and yes, so there's our 1/4 inch. We're good to go. That's where we're going to drill this hole, and then we'll go ahead and tap it. we've got everything figured out. I'm going to use a number 832 cap head screw to fasten all this together. I'm going to come in 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to add the half the thickness of the drill for that, which is a number 29, and that's where I'm going to start my first hole. I'm going to use a spotting drill, and then I'm going to come over 3/8 of an inch. And so this is going to be my X0, 375 thou over, and then we'll come back to 0, drill our hole 1/2 of an inch, maybe a touch farther than 1/2 an inch, come back over, same thing, then we'll chamfer, and then we're going to tap the holes. Sure. That's good. And this is going to be the relief for the cap head screws. Well, I've got quite the mess going on here, but that's kind of how it goes with my projects. I just get into it and I just start making a huge mess, then I clean it up when I'm done. Here's the status of where we are right now. We have this threaded rod is ready to go there. We have our holes drilled and tapped for the movable jaw, and then we have our mounting brass piece. I do need to shape this. I'm going to use a sander for that. And I got my counter holes drilled. Let's see if that fits and if I got everything. I use the DRO. By the way, this project's letting me use the DRO a lot, and I'm really enjoying it. It's helping me learn and understand that machine a lot better. But if we put this in here, hopefully I use the DRO and with success. And the idea is that these will recess below the surface, mount this in here, and hopefully that jaw will continue to move. So far, so good. Tighten that up. Just enough clearance between the two, and the movable jaw is working. Making progress. It's good. Obviously I need to shape that this brass piece underneath in order to let that move freely and completely across, but here we go. Progress. And then this will go here. We're just going to spot drill. 625 total depth, because I don't want to go all the way through, and that's going to be where the lead screw will rest inside of there. Well, we're getting our pieces made. We got, I think now we've got our hole drilled here where this will go in there and be able to ride back and forth. But before I get this ready for our set screw and the depth and all that, I think what I want to do is take off the excess material, because I do want this movable jaw to be flush with the tops of these. So let's go ahead and cut this off. We'll leave it a little proud, that way we can fly cut the tops of these so they're all the same when we're done. But let's just make sure this is going to go in there. We didn't bind something up. I need to clean up the threads here. It's a tight fit, but that's kind of what I'm going for. Probably just need to deburr that a little bit, but yeah, that's going to work. Back to lathe work. We're going to come in 1/8 of an inch and we're going to carve out a 1/4 inch relief so that our set screw will keep the screw rotating and where it needs to be. We're getting close. This is, I've learned a lot with this project, so there's gonna be a lot of things that I would change for making a second one of these. But let's keep going. We're getting really close to having a functional vise. It's not gonna be perfect. This is gonna be kind of like part 1 or Mach 1. But let's keep going. I need to drill a hole so that we can put our grub screw or set screw in there to lock in the feed screw. Well, everybody, we have got the base components made and we're ready to do the first fitment and assembly to see if this thing works. But right now, this is giving me anxiety. I've got such a mess. Let's get this cleaned up, bring you down to the bench, and then let's do a fit. But first, we gotta clean this mess up. We've either hit a stopping point or I'm not sure what to do. I know I mentioned to put some sacrificial jaws on the fixed jaw as well as the movable jaw. We're going to do that at some point. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that in this particular video. I kind of want to bring this project to a close. We've got all of the components made. There might be one more thing that I do in this video, but let's do an initial fitment before we close out this video. Let's see if everything fits together. I've kind of tested parts along the way, but I haven't actually done a complete fit of the entire thing. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see how this thing functions, if it functions at all. You can see there's the screw. We got our relief in there. We have our part with our grub screw or set screw mounting parts. This, I'm not real pleased with how this turned out, but it's going to work for now. Again, I'm going to call this my first attempt at a vise. I will definitely make one of these again someday, but this, so far it's coming along. Let's put this thing together and let's see if see how it operates. So I think the first thing we should do is put our mounting, I think it goes the other way. Mount our fixed jaw. Get in there. We have our set screw. Now I would end up using Loctite to keep that from backing out of there. So there's all the way. Let's back that off so it can spin freely. And there we go. Back that off a little bit more. There we go. Let's cheat and use this. There it is. Lining up a little bit. I need to do a little fine tuning on this. Not sure what that's doing. Should move freely. The only other thing I thought about doing was maybe closing the whole thing and running a fly cutter across the top to even out these. I think I might go ahead and do that in this video. But before I do that, I'm going to play with this and see if I can get this moving freely, a little smoother than it is. I think it just needs work back and forth. And then we'll fly cut the top of this so all three of these jaws are level. And then we'll close out this video. This gets hung up because of the space in there, but it will come out of there if I need it to. We've got everything kind of leveled off. Let's put this in here and then put our set screw in again. See if we can get it in there. And again, I'll Loctite that in there. But I believe I decided that for this project, I'm going to stop here. I'm not going to put the hard jaws or soft jaws. This is really, project like this has really taken a lot of time. It's just really time consuming to make all these parts. So I'm going to close the video out here. This is part 2, and it's going to be the final part of this vise. I do need to just kind of play with it and get everything moving freely. There we go. Fits up nicely. Got our set screw in there, so it will push in and it will come back out. I can mount this in my vise and hold something perpendicular to the other vise. And overall, this thing turned out well. It's going to be usable, and I'll be able to mount things in here, use this vise, and I can use a wrench to tighten it down if I need to. So like I said, if I want to mount something in here, and we can use this for rapid. And then if I have this in the vise, of course I could use a wrench to tighten that thing up. Overall, it turned out this is a fun project. I really got to use the mill a lot, and it was a good project for me to learn and start getting better with the DRO. And, you know, I made these two, let me take this off here. I made this jaw. I drilled the holes and tapped them independently from the brass piece, and it looks like crap, but they lined up perfectly. I used the DRO to make those measurements and get the whole pattern cut for both of those, and it worked out great. So I really got to use the DRO a lot with this project. This was a fun project. I learned a lot from this. There's things I would do differently, but overall, it's a pretty simple vise, but it'll be very usable. I think I would like to try this again sometime, but use bigger material. I'd like to make a bigger vise. This one's 4 inches wide by an inch, about an inch wide. So 4 inches long by about an inch wide. So, and then an inch and a half or so tall. So that's the dimensions of this. 12L14. This is not the right steel for this particular type of project. This is A36 mild steel. If you're curious how that turns and the finishes come out on those, this was all done with face mill. The lathe work turned out really nice, I think. I really like using that lathe. I don't know. I'm still partial to the lathe because it's what I started with. But overall, this thing turned out really well. I'm closing this video. This is part 2 of the Toolmakers Vise D style. And it's pretty rudimentary, but it's functional. It will work. I will be able to use it. And I just learned a lot, and I think I'm going to improve on several things for a future version. Well, it's time to bring this project to a close. I'm going to close it after 2 videos. I built the base vise. It could use some refinement. It could use some polishing or some lapping. There's a lot of different things that I could do to it. I could put some hard or soft jaws on, which I will do someday. But for the purpose of this build, it was more of a proof of concept. Could I do it? Could I come up with an idea that's functional? And I think I did. There's a lot of things that I want to improve on this design. I'd like to make a slightly wider one, although this is going to be very functional. I also want to improve some of the finishes that I did. Once I broke out the hand file, it just kind of, the look of it, it's very functional, but the look of it kind of went down with some of the components, like the tab that goes into the slot, the brass mounting portion. I screwed that up. The screw turned out very well. This 12L14 turns very nice. Again, I know that's not the right materials to use for that. So maybe I'll do that, as well as research what kind of steel should I be using to make a vise or a tool. Because I know there's right and wrong things to do. But overall, the thing turned out really well. There's some slight modifications that I would do. Maybe I'll design something in CAD or something, and then build something off of some actual plans. But now that I've built it and I have a functional unit, there's some things that I would change. I think I'll tackle this again someday. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm closing it here. We'll do some more work to this in the future, but for the purpose of this initial Toolmakers Vise build, we've built one from scratch. It turned out decent, it's functional, and I'll be able to use it. I appreciate everybody watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I really appreciate it. Especially appreciate all the people that have already subscribed. And I hope you enjoyed this little Toolmakers Vise build, these style. It's pretty rudimentary, but it's functional, and it turned out well, and I learned a lot. Thanks for watching.